I just want to say what an honor it is for me personally to be able to share a stage with former Chief Fobister, Chief Cameron, and Grand Chief of Treaty 3, Warren White. It's a real honor. The courage, the persistence, the integrity, the dignity of the struggle that you have had over the last 40 years has been an inspiration to all of us here. And we thank you for that. We want to bring a message to you today that we stand with you in this struggle. And this is a struggle that has to come to an end at some point. Well, when I was a young man, a teenager growing up in Etobicoke, my brother-in-law was a doctor, a practitioner in Grassy Narrows, right around the time that they were discovering the mercury poisoning. After my mom passed, and he came down here, I was living with my brother-in-law, and I would hear those late-night calls. I would hear the calls to the leaders in the community, to former patients, calls that he made at odd hours over to Japan, the calls to politicians here, the reading material that was around, the reports that started to trickle in. And it was this information, this sort of environment and milieu that introduced me to the struggle that people were having in Grassy. And it was actually, for me, it was an introduction to what justice is about and what environmental injustice is about. And for me, it was an awakening to the reality that we see all too often, a corporate mindset that views nature, that views our water, that views our air as simply an empty vessel for our toxic waste to be dumped into. And the very same attitude that poisoned the English River, the Wabigoon system, is the same attitude we are seeing today, as Chief Forrester said. It's the same attitude that we're seeing in the tar sands that is poisoning those people downstream in Fort Chipewyan. It's the same corporate attitude that we are seeing from Enbridge Pipeline to be run through the territories of First Nations people who will suffer the effects of the spills, not if they happen, but when they happen. And it's the corporate greed that poisoned the English River that will poison our coasts. If we have a tanker spill and we spill oil, and it'll be the Haida guy that paid the price for that. And it's an attitude that happens that it's out of sight, out of mind. We didn't know it was happening up in Grassy Narrows, so it wasn't happening. Well, I have a message for Dalton McGuinty. I have a message for the government of Ontario. We wouldn't stand for this if it was happening in Minister Wynn's Don Mills community. It simply wouldn't happen. What kind of outrage would we hear if every night we in Don Mills sent kids to bed with the choice of no food or contaminated food? What outcry would we hear if a kid hungry in Dalton McGuinty's riding of Ottawa South, if we gave him a choice of you can go to bed hungry or you can have your daily dose of mercury poisoning? It is shameful. Dalton McGuinty has said that he has a heavy responsibility, that the people of Ontario have a heavy responsibility to examine the facts about the poisoning of the water of the Grassy Narrows First Nation, about the poisoning of the fish there. We have a heavy responsibility to examine the facts about that poisoning. Well, I will say to Dalton McGuinty, we have a heavy responsibility to take action. We have a heavy responsibility to make retribution. We have a heavy responsibility to pay compensation to the people of the Wabigoon water system. We have a heavy responsibility to recognize the United Nations guaranteed rights that we obey Aboriginal rights to their territories. And that's our responsibility, not simply more studies. On behalf of Greenpeace, on behalf of all of us here, to Chief Bovister and to the people of Grassy Narrows, the people involved in this struggle, we take strength from your struggle. But I want to say, when you go back to your community, you will not be out of sight. You will not be out of mind. You are downstream. We are all downstream. And we have to remember that, and we will make sure that you are not out of sight, you are not out of mind here in Toronto, nor here in Queen's Park. Your struggle is a just one, and we will see this through until justice is served.